Good evening, and welcome to What's Your Story? I'm your host, James Ransom Reed, Jr., and have we got a story for you tonight. As you travel throughout Connecticut, you'll see names on buildings and names on parks and memorials all over the state, the same as any other state. And those names are generally of the people, the movers and the shakers who came through that particular era at a particular point in history. And they also left their mark on the city, on the state, on the nation, on the world. One such family is the Colt family, almost exclusively associated with Hartford, Connecticut. Today, we are going to talk about Coltsville National Historical Park. And I have as my very special guest, Mr. Jack Hale, who probably knows more about the Coltsville National Historical Park than anybody else. So I'm very happy to have him with me today. Actually, we're going to do a two-parter. So you don't want to miss the first part, and you don't want to miss the second part. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, excuse me, when I met you a couple of weeks ago, and we met over at the Church of the Good Shepherd, which we're going to talk about, I was amazed at the history lesson that you gave me standing there. I thought to myself, my goodness, I have lived in Hartford off and on for many years, and I didn't know the Coltsville National Historical Park and all the 12 different components of it. So I want my audience tonight, when they leave this program, I want them to know about the history of Hartford. And that's why you're here to talk about Coltsville. Well, let's begin, though, by telling my audience a bit about your background. Where were you born, Jack?
I was born in Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon. Okay. How did your family settle there?
My father was going to graduate school there in education when I was born. And he was on the GI Bill after World War II. Yeah.
What branch of the service?
The Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what was life like in Eugene, Oregon? Tell us about it.
I have no idea.
You have no idea why?
Yeah, we left there as soon as he graduated.
Oh, okay.
So I actually grew up in Portland.
Oh, you grew up in Portland?
Yeah.
Okay. Oregon or Maine?
Oregon.
Okay. And what was life like there?
Well, Portland's a great city. Where we lived was a brand new development on the eastern edge of the city that had been a raspberry farm until it was developed. So we had raspberries sprouting up in our lawn for years. Growing up in Portland is different from here. The population was not as diverse.
Okay, all right.
In fact, I don't believe I ever met a black person while I was in school out there, not until I came out here to go to Trinity College.
So the only place you saw a black person probably on TV?
Well, if they were there,
if
yeah.
they were even there, yeah, in that period.
Yeah, Oregon has always been a challenging place for people of color. Mm-hmm. But during World War II, a lot of African Americans came there to work in the shipyards.
Yes, absolutely.
And they settled in the area near the shipyard, which was not where I lived.
Okay.
My father, however, was a school principal, and the school that he led, the student body was 99% African American, and the teachers were all white. It was. I didn't have any sense of it when I was there.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Since then, it has become a challenging story.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about grade school. Now, that's a very impressionable point in people's lives. What sticks with you from your grade school years?
What sticks with me? Well, mostly my fourth grade teacher was Mr. Brannon.
Mr. Brannon.
And it was his first year as a teacher.
Oh, boy.
And he was wildly enthusiastic. And he appreciated, or he seemed to appreciate, who I was and what I liked to do. And he encouraged me in all sorts of different ways. So it was like a peak experience for me at that time. 2 years later, I was in the sixth grade with a teacher who had a reputation as not liking boys. They put me in there because they thought I could stand it.
This was a male or female teacher?
Female.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Wow.
I made it through all right.
What high school did you go to?
I went to a public high school called James Madison High School, which is not called that anymore. It's still there. It was brand new when I went there.
Okay.
Not much to say about that. It was high school.
Okay. Now, most schools or high schools have a mascot. What was James Madison's mascot?
The Senators.
The Senators.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you graduated a senator, right?
Yeah, I was a senator for 4 years. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really, really, really something.
Yep.
Yeah. So growing up in that area of the world, how did you end up at Trinity College?
Well, I always tell people I was an affirmative action student.
Okay.
The folks at Trinity had decided at that time that they needed more public school guys from the West Coast because the student body at Trinity was largely from private schools here on the East Coast at that time. And so the director of admissions flew out to Oregon to see what he could drum up. And the college counselor in my high school said, stopped me in the hall and said, "You should go see this guy, just to be nice, because nobody's going to go see him. Nobody knows anything about his school. And so why would they go?" So I was an agreeable person, so I went and met with him. I think there were like 3 other people in the room. He had brought this beautiful slideshow of the Trinity campus, which, you've been there. Yes, you have.
Yes, I have.
Beautiful pictures. He was a stunning individual. He was well over 6 feet tall, wore this impeccable suit and shiny wingtip loafers that I'd never seen before. And he was very low key. He said, I know you've never heard of Trinity College. And not only that, I'd never really heard of Connecticut, but he said, you might be interested in the idea of an all-male East Coast school. So I listened to his story, and when it came time to apply to schools, I figured I might as well apply there as well as any place else. And I did, and I got in, and I got a scholarship that was made it equivalent to staying in Oregon and going to a state school. And then, when I was accepted there, I got a telegram from G. Keith Funston, who was the president of the New York Stock Exchange. A telegram in 1966.
Wow.
He had been president of Trinity before that, and you may recall there's a Funston Court next to the library.
Absolutely.
That's
yes.
him. So I got a telegram from him. The director of admissions called me in 1966.
Yes.
My parents never made long distance calls. he called me up and said, "Hey, you're in, and I have a scholarship that I want you to apply for." And so I did, and I got this fancy scholarship. So I was treated so well that I couldn't say no to that place. They really went all out to engage, and beautiful experience. So it was not like today when people do all these college visits and everything else. I had never been there. All I'd ever seen was some slides and maybe a brochure or something. And I went, shipped my stuff out in a trunk, flew out. I didn't know where I was going.
What did your parents say or feel? Were they happy for you? Were they, you're going so far away from home?
Yeah, it was sort of expected that when you went to, in my family, that when you went to college, that was a chance to go somewhere.
Okay, all right, all right.
So it was okay to go that far. My mother, however, never forgave me for not coming home afterwards.
Okay.
I stayed out here until now.
Until now, yeah. Now, tell us your title in connection with the Colt National Park. What is your title?
Well, at the Church of the Good Shepherd, which will be part of the park, I'm chair of the Building and Grounds Committee.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
20, 25 years, something like that. It's a lot of work to do there. I also spent a chunk of time as the senior warden, which is like the chair of the board in Episcopal churches. 17 years doing that. But I finally retired from that position a few years ago. So I just deal with the building and grounds stuff.
So Jack, how did you end up from Trinity College over at the Colt? How did that happen? What was the transition?
It's not a linear process. It's not related. I just at one point when my wife and I were looking to start our family, which we did via adoptions, we felt that we should have a church home where we could go as a family and expose our kids to that. And somebody, a friend of ours, invited us to go to Good Shepherd, and we went. And I'm still there.
So do you know when you got that invite? Can you ballpark what year? Do you know?
It was 1980.
1980. Okay. So
Yeah.
you've been there. Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about your duties and responsibilities so the viewing audience can understand what it is you do.
Well, I think you first need to understand what Good Shepherd is.
All right.
So the church was built and consecrated in 1869 by Elizabeth Colt. It's a memorial to her husband, Sam Colt, who was, to some ways of thinking, the inventor of the revolver, and who had the Colt firearms company that he started. It's also a memorial to the 3 children they had who died in infancy. Elizabeth Colt, at the time Sam died in 1862, when he left the business to her, she overnight became the wealthiest woman in the United States, because women typically didn't hold powerful positions. It was a big scandal because it was the middle of the Civil War, and she was a woman. And the company we're talking about was the biggest armament manufacturer in the United States. But anyway, she felt that once she got her feet on the ground that she needed to create a memorial for Sam. So that She did that. She hired the best architect around, Edward Tuckerman Potter, to design it, and she spared no expense. So a beautiful, complicated, expensive building, the church. Some years later, the only child of the Colts who survived into adulthood, whose name was Caldwell, died down in Florida, and she decided she'd build a memorial to him. So the parish house is a memorial to him, and it because mostly what Caldwell did as an irresponsible rich kid was to sail. He had a 130-foot long yacht called the Dauntless that he sailed all over the place, and that was the main thing you could say about him. So when Elizabeth asked Potter to come back into business, and he had retired 20 years before, she wanted to build a place that would reflect Caldwell's interest in sailing. So the building is reminiscent throughout of nautical themes, stone carvings and what have you. You have to see it to to understand. Anyway, so that we have these two buildings, and they're sitting on 5 acres of lawn and trees and such. And the Building and Grounds Committee and the chair try to keep those buildings safe and well-maintained and habitable, and we do whatever needs to be done there. Luckily, Elizabeth, when she died in 1905, left a trust that at that time was worth $800,000. That was fairly good pile of cash. So a trust, a group of trustees to oversee that, and we still depend heavily on the results of that gift to maintain things. So, just as an example, we're planning to redo a section of the roof on the church next spring. It's going to cost us $250,000 for just part of the roof. So it's good we have that backing.
Wow. You know, the Coltsville National Historical Park, I wonder how many of my viewers who are Hartford residents or who have been in Hartford for years and years and years driving around, I wonder how many of them are familiar with the fact that there is a Coltsville National Historical Park. So let's move to, I'm going to give my audience a quick overview. The Coltsville National Park is located in Hartford, Connecticut. It is composed of 12 different sites which are connected to the Colt family. Those sites are, number 1, Samuel Colt Memorial. Number 2, Colt's Patent Firearms Manufacturing Company. Number 3, Armsmere. Number 4, Colt Park. Number 5, Church of the Good Shepherd. Number 6, Caldwell Hart Colt Memorial Parish. Number 7, Colt Supervisor Houses, James Colt House, and number 8, Armory Workers Houses. Number 9, Potsdam Village. Number 10, Cedar Hill Cemetery. Number 11, Wadsworth Athenaeum. And number 12, the Connecticut State Library. I believe you talked a little bit about the Samuel Colt Memorial. Talk about where it is and why it's there, and if you know the architect who did it, and what is its message, because those things usually have some sort of message etched into it. What's the message of the Samuel Colt Memorial, and where is it?
Yeah, the memorial is in Colt Park, which was, prior to Elizabeth's death, the backyard of Armsmere. People can see it right off of Wethersfield Avenue in Hartford. If they find Armsmere and just head a little farther south on Wethersfield Avenue, they'll see in the park the big monument. It depicts Sam at his peak. At the top of the monument is a full-size, or more than full-size, statue of Sam. In the front, the beginning of his story, it's a picture of him as in the merchant, as a merchant seaman, carving the prototype of the cylinder for the revolver. And then on the monument itself, there are two friezes. They're three-dimensional images. One of Sam making a presentation to, I think, the House of Lords in England, and the other of him addressing the court of the Tsar of Russia. Two times when he really felt he had made it, because he was able to present his products to these high-level folks.
Now, he traveled around the world delivering his product to heads of state, did he not? Europe anyway. Yeah, it was in Europe.
Yeah, he was in Turkey and England and Russia, and I don't know where all else.
All right.
He established a branch factory in London, which was not successful, but he gave it a try. He couldn't get anybody to work for him the way that people worked for him in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the Colt's patented firearms manufacturing company, the Blue Dome? Is that what that's?
Yeah. If people drive up and down 91, they can't miss that blue dome on top of the factory building. Sam built that. That was his first main armory building there, and he built it there so he could have his own wharf on the Connecticut River. He didn't want to rely on the public wharf in downtown Hartford because he was going to be shipping a lot of guns, which turned out to be true. But that was his company that manufactured the revolvers and other armaments and other things for many years.
Now, was it always a blue dome? And as I recall, there's a Colt horse on top of it, or
yeah, there is.
Did I get that right? Or
yeah, there's a gold ball on top of this blue dome.
Okay,
and then a horse, a rearing horse on top, which was his emblem. The dome was. Well, any factories of that age usually have something on top.
Yeah, okay.
But he went way over the standard process, and he built the fanciest top anywhere around, and it was meant to remind people that he had been to Russia and been to the court of the Tsar.
Okay.
So it's a Russian dome.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all we have for this portion of my interview with Jack Hale on the Coltsville National Historical Park. I thank you for joining us. Remember, everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time, I'm your host, James Ransom Reed, Jr. Good night.
Follow us on Instagram at nutmeg.tv.